much clutter. Life is too precious to waste on you.
So be it. Keep your precious sanity, my agent of chaos. You shall serve me whether you like it or not. I'm not going anywhere.
I really like this build. It is extremely easy to play. Left click is for movement only, middle mouse button is for Essence Drain, right click is reserved for Bane. Most of the time you will need to cast just Bane, with little support from Flame Dash, which is my movement skill. Mouse button number 5 is reserved for Flame Dash. Wither totems are on W, Frostwall totems are on Q, E is reserved for Vile Discipline, and I have one free K-bind on my main skill bar, which I will probably use for Vile Righteous Fire or maybe Vile Grace. My 4 flasks are on numbers 1 to 4, and the last flask is on space. This last flask is Quicksilver with immunity to bleeding, and this is the flask I use most often. Contagion I use only for 100% Delirium tier 16 maps and for Timeless Domain. In that case, the Frostwall is moved to my mouse number 4 and Contagion is on E. Bane as an area effect spell is so powerful that you don't need to use Contagion plus Essence Drain. Instead of casting 2 spells, it is much easier and faster to just cast one spell Bane. Also, curses linked with Bane will also be applied, so there is no need to use Witchfire or Flask. By default, you can apply one curse, so you need to link Bane with Despair. With 20 quality Bane, the applied curse will have 10% increase effect. Now, when you start using the Presence of Chayula amulet, which is the main amulet for this build, you can respec Vile Bastion and take Malediction. I like to use Temporal Chains or Enfeeble. With Malediction, you can apply 2 curses, so now you can link another curse with Bane. I like to use Temporal Chains or Enfeeble. To make Bane even more powerful, I switch position for Essence Drain and Bane. Standard Essence Drain Bow with Empower level 4 will increase the level of Bane and 2 link curses by 7 levels. So now not only Bane will be 7 level higher, but also both curses linked with the Bane. For bosses like Sirius, Uber Elder, Wave 20 in Simulacrum and bosses in 100% tier 16 Delirium maps, where you need maximum single target damage, Essence Drain goes back to Bow and Bane is in body armor. To be able to easily switch gems, you should add white sockets by using Vorici rank 3 crafting bench inside the research safe house. For bosses, be sure to use Wither Totems. With 15 stacks of the debuff, Bane and Essence Drain will do 90% more damage. Instead of waiting 15 seconds to apply 15 stacks with Occultist Withering Presence, we use Wither Totems and apply these stacks in less than 2 seconds. Beside Wither Totems, I occasionally use Frostwall Totems when I need an additional layer of defense. Just be sure to not use Frostwall Totems close to your position, as this can block your movement too. This build can farm all maps, Conquerors and Series on Awakening level 8. It can run all map mods, and you can farm white and yellow maps on budget gear. With this build, you are stun immune, either by using Presence of Chayula Amulet or by using Occultist Ascendancy Vile Bastion. This is a low life build, so comparing to CI or life build, you will do 30% more damage, and also you can reserve 150% aura on your life, which is huge buff. Also, because of Withering Presence, it is easy to reach 75% chaos resistance. And for me, probably the best thing about this build is how easy it is to modify and change build depending on content I need to do. And did I mention how easy it is to play this build? I can clear whole map by using just Bane and Flame Dash as my movement skill. Only for bosses I need to cast Wither Totems and Essence Drain. With my current gear, this way I was able to clear tier 16 60% Delirium map. Now, this is not the build where you can use the budget gear and easily clear red maps. For red maps and endgame, especially if you want to farm Simulacrum, you will need to invest more currency. Some minimum for tier 16 maps is 6-link standard Essence Drain Bow, level 4 Empower, 6-link Chevron Wrappings, presence of Chayula Amulet with good anointment like Tranquility, and at least some nice cluster jewels. You will also need at least 9.5k energy shield, so you can survive some big hits from crazy Delirium mobs. Next, if you used to play some bow build with over 400 movement speed, this build is probably not for you. Clearing speed is only decent. Also, this build cannot face tank. You need to move all the time and try to avoid all damage. If you get hit, a high energy shield will save you, but for next big hit, be sure your energy shield is back to maximum. Also, worth mentioning, this is not the best build for farming low depth delve, and also it is not a deep delving build. Now, the major weakness of this build is cold damage. Because of low life, almost any frost damage has a chance to freeze you. A cheap solution is to use 1 or even 2 flasks with immunity to freeze. More expensive and probably the best is to use rare boots with mod cannot be frozen. Also, you can use Dream Fragments unique ring, though in that case you will lose a bit higher amount of energy shield. Now I will explain why I picked Occultist and not Trickster. So here is the usual setup for Trickster. It will have Ghost Dance, Escape Artist, Patient Reaper and Prolonged Pain. Just by looking on Ghost Dance and Escape Artist, you can see that main ascendancy for Trickster is for defense. And you will get some damage with Patient Reaper and more with Prolonged Pain, but the base is best for defense. With this setup, you will usually run Eldritch Battery, and your build will be life plus energy shield. And in the start, you will lose 30% more spell damage when on low life. And usually, because you're focused more on defense, you will have less damage than Occultist. Because you can get some really nice defense, it is good to pick Trickster if you plan to play in Hardcore League. Now, because you will have less damage than Occultist, your Bane will also be less useful with Trickster. Also, Trickster usually use Contagion plus Essence Drain, which is, for me, a bit tiresome to cast all the time 2 spells instead by just use Bane. So now let's look at Occultist. So let's select Witch and Occultist. So my setup at the moment is Void Beacon, Withering Presence, Profane Bloom, and Malediction. I'm using Presence of Chayula amulet, so I don't have to use Vile Bastion. With Void Beacon, I get nearby enemies have minus 20 to chaos resistance. This is huge damage buff, especially when enemies are buffed with chaos resistance or there are map mods that will give additional chaos resistance to mobs. And next is Withering Presence, which is nice. 20 to chaos damage over time multiplier is nice damage buff, but also 60% to chaos resistance. This will give you much easier time to reach 75% chaos resistance. Next is another amazing Ascendancy Profane Bloom. Your curses can apply to hexproof enemies. This is a huge quality of life improvement, especially on if you play many maps. And the next thing is also even better. Cursed enemies you or your minion skill have 25% chance to explode, dealing a quarter of their maximum life as chaos damage. Besides, it is fun to see explosions with this Profane Bloom. It will give you nice damage buff. And the last is Malediction. With Malediction, you can apply an additional curse, which is also a really nice. 15% increase effect of your curses, and enemies you curse have Malediction, meaning enemies will deal 10% reduced damage and will take 10% increased damage. In this case, this 10% is more damage for our build. Now, if you replace Presence of Chayula amulet, you can go back to Vile Bastion and probably remove Withering Presence. And instead of Presence of Chayula, you can use a really good crafted rare amulet and get +2 to gems and up to 16% to chaos damage over time multiplier. Because of Occultist low life, you will have, usually you go low life, you will get 30% more spell damage when on low life, and also it will be easier to reach high amount of energy shield, which will be your main defense. Because of high damage, your Bane will be really powerful. So you can play with just one spell and clear whole map without need to use Contagion plus Essence Drain. Now here is my level 95 character, MC Red Mirror Witch. I'm using standard Essence Drain bow. I was lucky to get +35 to fire resistance as the last mod. And in bow I have Bane linked with Despair, Temporal Chains, Efficacy, Empower level 4 and Void Manipulation. Bane is level 21 with 20 quality. Depending on map mods, I use as a second curse, I use Temporal Chains or Enfeeble. In case you don't have options to use two curses, you can replace Temporal Chains with Swift Affliction. Body armor is standard chevron wrapping 6 link. In body armor I have Essence Drain linked with Control Distraction, Swift Affliction, Void Manipulation, Efficacy and Empower level 4. If I need higher single target damage for bosses like Sirius, I replace Essence Drain and Bane. So I need just to replace 3 gems like this. And now I have Essence Drain back to bow and Bane is back to body armor. Quiver is standard Soul Strike. Try to get one with high amount to maximum energy shield. Next is Helmet. It is Hubris Cycled with good Labyrinth Enchant, 30% increased Desperate Curse effect. I tried to craft one with -9 to Chaos Resistant, but instead of that mod I hit 9% increase intelligence. Later I will need to craft a better helmet. In helmet I have Flame Dash linked with Arcane Surge support. Arcane Surge grants 11% more spell damage, 10% increased cast speed, nice amount of mana regeneration, and be sure that you keep Arcane Surge at low levels, so just one use of Flame Dash activate Arcane Surge. I also, in helmet, I have cast when damage taken linked with Withering Step level 10. If I need to use contagion, like for tier 16 100% delirium maps, I remove Withering Step and cast when damage taken, also Flame Dash and Arcane Surge, and then contagion is in helmet linked with increased area effect, intensify, and Arcane Surge. Flame Dash goes back to boots and replace Frostfall. Now, next are gloves. I was lucky to craft fingerless silk gloves by using just one essence, and I got tier 2 for chaos damage or time multiplier and nice amount of energy shield and resistance. And the next are boots with nice amount energy shield, and I got these boots with open prefix and just mastercraft increase energy shield. Next is amulet. It is standard unique amulet presence of Chayula with really good anointment, allocates tranquility. Tranquility gives 5% energy shield and 30% of increase energy shield is converted to spell damage. So this anointment gives a really good damage buff. Instead of presence of Chayula, I will try to craft a good rare amulet with +1 to intelligence skill gems and +1 to chaos skill gems. And I think with 16% to chaos damage over time multiplier, which will give a really nice damage buff. Next are rings. For rings, I try to get as much as possible increase maximum energy shield and 2 maximum energy shield. One ring like this gives me almost 1000 energy shield. And here is the second one. It has a little less energy shield, but nice amount of resistance. I will need to probably replace one of those two rings with dream fragments and get cannot be chilled and cannot be frozen, or maybe get cannot be frozen on the boots as prefix. It is possible to mastercraft that mod. And for the moment I'm using Quicksilver Flask with immunity to freeze. And after the rings, the last piece is the belt. Belt gives me a really huge amount of energy shield and also a nice amount of spell damage during any flask effect. All gear except body armor, amulet presence of Chayula, is crafted. My next video will be crafting guide for crystal belt, and after that I will try to upload crafting guides for helmet, amulets, rings, gloves, and also will try to fossil craft better bow and update my old crafting guide. Now for flask I use one with immunity to freeze. I also use for 100% tier 16 delirium maps, I use Sorrow of Divine. This flask gives zealot oath during flask effect. Life regeneration is applied to energy shield, and you get life regeneration from Essence Drain. You are healed for a portion of the debuff damage, and usually I have zealot oath on passive 3. This time I removed and saved huge amount of passive points, which I used on my cluster jewels. And instead of taking zealot on passive 3, I took flask. Third flask is Enduring Mana Flask. This one increases movement speed. If I need, I replace this Enduring Mana Flask with Flask for immunity to Ignite. Next flask is Silver Flask with Onslaught. Onslaught gives 20% increase cast, attack, and movement speed, and also gives immunity to curses. The last one is Standard Quicksilver Flask with immunity to bleed. I forget about links in gloves and boots, so let me tell you about those links. In gloves, I have Malevolence linked with Blood Magic level 19. It needs to be level 19 minimum, and it's better to stay at level 19, so strength requirement is lower. And also I have Vile Discipline and Summon Skitterbots. Summon Skitterbots gives around 18% at level 20, 18% more damage, and they will chill and shocks enemies, which gives that damage buff. Instead of Summon Skitterbots, if need, I replace with Flesh and Stone in Zen stance. Usually around 30 to 40 chromatics I need to spend to get 2 red sockets on these gloves. And in boots, I have Wither linked with Spell Totem, multiple totems, and the last addition is Frost Wall. So I'm able to cast Wither totems and Frost Wall totems. Frost Wall totems gives an additional layer of defense. By casting 1 or 2 Frost Wall totems, you can block almost half of the screen with Frost Wall. Be sure to not use those Frost Walls near your position, as you will block your movement too. You can use Flame Dash to move across the Frost Wall, but it's better to not use it near your position. So yeah, now let's get back to auras. I use Malevolence linked to reserved on life, and 2 additional auras are Summon Skitterbots and Discipline. Instead of Summon Skitterbots, you should use Flame, Flesh and Stone if you need more defense. One thing I forgot is map mod Elemental Weakness. With that mod, I replace Summon Skitterbots with Purity of Elements. At the moment, with my current gear, I have over 12k energy shield. It is possible to increase this energy shield even more by crafting better helmet and probably with crafting better gloves. Also, I could buy Watcher's Eye and increase my energy shield for almost 1000. Only problem that Watcher's Eye is around 40 exalted orbs. And here is my passive tree. On the passive tree, my goal was to get as much as possible energy shield and increase chaos damage, especially chaos damage over time multiplier. As you can see, I'm using 1 unique Cobalt Jewel to get even more energy shield, and I replaced the second Cobalt unique Jewel with Unnatural Instinct, which is expensive. With this unique Jewel, I got 1 passive point, and as you can see, I get 18% increased maximum mana, 10% increased mana regeneration rate, and the most important 4% chance to get power, frenzy, or endurance charge on kill. With Cobalt Jewel, I used 4 passives. Now I don't need to use those 4. I used to get back my energy shield I lost by replacing Cobalt Jewel. I spent 3 points to get Atmos Intellect, and I got back my energy shield, and I had 1 free passive which I think I added on this small cluster jewel to have one more passives like this. So Essence Surge is important for increasing energy shield. Hex Master is important for Bane. Of course, this is for chaos damage over time multiplier, same as growth and decay. And this is standard method to the madness and void barrier. Now, interesting are cluster jewels. I use one large, two medium, and two small cluster jewels. And with those cluster jewels, I got Wicked Pole, 30% increased chaos damage with this notable and unspeakable gifts, even more explosions. With medium, I got nice amount of damage over time, increased maximum energy shield, another 10% to damage over time multiplier, and recover 1% of energy shield on kill. And the most important is plus 100 to maximum energy shield, multiply with 2, because I have 2 small cluster jewels. As you can see, this is another medium cluster jewel. Now, it may be possible to spec into one more large jewel socket. I need to experiment a little with my passive tree and see if I could benefit with getting another large jewel socket with maybe one medium and one small. In that case, I would probably need to replace and remove these 1, 2, 3, 6 passive points on this side and 1, 2, 3, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 points and remove Method to the Madness and Void Barrier. If I did that, remove those passive points, I could probably set a large jewel socket, but I had no time to test it, so it will be for my next video when I do min-maxing of the build. So for now, this is all. Thanks for watching and see you next time.